You're listening to Aging Today, the podcast where together we explore the options to aging on your terms.
When I get older, losing my hair, many years from now, will you still be sending me a Valentine? Birthday greetings, bottle of wine. If I've been out till 2:45, would you lock the door? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
And now the podcast where together we discuss proactive aging on your terms, connecting to the professional advice of our special guests while creating better days throughout the aging process. Now here's your host, Mark Turnbull.
And welcome to Aging Today. We are the podcast where together we explore the many options to aging on your terms. You can find Aging Today and our 4 years of past programs on our website. All you got to do is go to the web and type in www.agingtoday.us. You can also follow us on your favorite podcast channels such as Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, iHeartSpreaker, and there's tons more out there. So there's a couple of ways that you can listen to these programs on Aging Today. And then finally, I'd like to hear from you, our listeners. We want to know the questions that you're asking on the aging process, and we always want to address your questions. Bring in the top experts to answer your questions, and so that we can continue to bring all the important information on aging as you and I are aging today. Contact me, your host, Mark Turnbull, at mark@agingtoday.us. Simply email me and ask me any questions, or if you've got some great ideas for some future guests on our show, just contact me, let me know, mark@agingtoday.us. Well, as we do every year, we always want to celebrate those that have served our country and have served it well. And as you remember, last year we had Wally Reitz on the show. He was a veteran of World War II, and he fought in the Battle of the Bulge, and he just passed away this year. And so I do want to say a tribute to Wally. Thank you for the 98 years that you were on this planet and helping us to make it a better place. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to continue to highlight all the veterans that we can and say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for serving our country. And this is a day to honor you, those people that have served. And here in the studio today, we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going on, and we're going to shift gears from World War II, and we're going to talk to another veteran that has served this country honorably and has contributed to the American society for quite a few years. We're going to find out how many, actually. Here in the studio is Nick Nicholson. Nick, welcome to Aging Today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very excited to hear your story. And this is a podcast about telling your story. And I want you to talk a little bit about, your background, where you were born and raised, and then how you got into the military, because you were born at a time where I'm assuming you were born between World War II or right around during World War II, and then you missed World War II, but then you went to serve our country in Korea and in Vietnam as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and go. Tell us the story. Obviously, you started out as a child. Where were you born?
I was born in Ohio and went to a small country school, high school from from first grade on through 12. And then I went to Ohio University in Athens, Ohio.
Okay. What year was that you were born? What do you remember?
1928.
1928. Wow. Okay.
And I was in high school during the very end of World War II. So I had two brothers and a sister in the service, but I didn't go. But when I got to ROTC at at Ohio University, they had something that I don't think many other colleges had, but it was a public school. It wasn't a church or anything like that. And they had a requirement in 1904, when they sold all the country they bought all the way down to through Ohio and down to Louisiana and so forth. When they bought that, they had a stipulation that the first 2 years that you were in ROTC, it was just like you were drafted. You had to attend college, you had to take training, military training. Mm-hmm. Well, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't have anything to do with it because I had two sisters and brothers,
Yeah.
But I ended up training. I ended up in what they call the Pershing Rifles, was kind of like cheerleaders, that kind of thing, because we went to other colleges and performed. Went to Ohio State and Indiana and Kentucky and places like that, in uniform with guns, big old military guns with sabers on them. Mm-hmm. And we just went right after it. And I wanted to do education and become a teacher, but one of the profs talked me out of it. He says, "No, you don't want to do this, no." So there I am with a degree in education and history, and that, in those days, in 50 cents, you could buy a cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. So I went into the military because I had seen airplanes, military airplanes flying around where we were in Ohio. And so I applied for a pilot school.
And that's how you got into the military.
That's how I got into the military.
What fascinated you about planes? Did you have a fascination about them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could see them. But one of the things that was kind of ridiculous, but I washed out of pilot school, the very first thing I did, and in northern Texas. And then I was reassigned to bombardier, navigator, radar training in South Texas, but I wrecked my car and I showed up late, and the first job I had was teaching. It was that time when the Air Force was changing their structures and so forth, and I ended up teaching a World War II outfit that was going to Korea, and there I was, a second lieutenant with absolutely no experience.
No experience, but you were training
I was training
veterans.
them. So the best I could do was I had studied a little bit about training and education, and I started every day with those guys because we had some new guys as well as the World War II vets, and we started with a joke.
Yeah,
and so we started with a joke, everybody, and they all had a equal spot to go, and it worked out good because I said, this is not just a lecture, we're in there for it. You're learning, I'm learning, and when I got commissioned, I always learned from the listed people, and anybody else that I could study.
So now, have you always been a jokester, or was this something that you picked up at this particular time of your life? Because as I understand it, you love telling jokes.
Well, yeah, and I started when I was real small, and like in high school. I got the junior year of high school. I was in all the plays, and I got to tell jokes in there.
Yeah.
And the jokes of, kind of kept my 70 years of love life with my wife going, the jokes too.
Sure.
And yeah, I've always been telling jokes. Yeah.
And did you find that throughout your life, even in the military and onward, moving forward, that jokes were a way for you to kind of, alleviate some of the stress and pressures in life? Is that how you looked at jokes?
Oh, yeah. And, we'd get, the outfit was sent from North Carolina or South Carolina to Germany.
Yeah.
And when we got there, the first thing that happened was, now I wasn't a pilot, they kind of run the show, but when we went to drink at the bar afterwards, I ended up telling jokes, sometimes standing on a chair.
So you were the entertainer.
I was the entertainer, yeah.
So do you remember some of those jokes? Some of the ways that you entertained? Or maybe a better question is, what was your favorite joke?
My favorite joke?
Do you have one?
Well, they're kind of recent, I suppose. Well, here's one that I kind of like for people who are in business. Mm-hmm. What do you call an alligator wearing a vest?
I don't know.
An investigator.
Investigator. Very good. Very good. And that's kind of the flavor of a lot of your jokes, as I've just known you for a little bit of time. I loved your one that you shared with me about a politician. So tell our listening audience this one. This one's really good.
Yeah, well, the difference between a politician and a bad man, a robber, is the robber robs you and then steals your money and then runs. And the politician runs and then she steals your money.
Yeah, that's right. That's usually how it goes. So, but that's a kind of the flavor of the kind of humor that you enjoy, and that you were able to spread that throughout your life to people. Doesn't matter what kind of scenario you were in. Correct?
Yeah, and I love to write poems because I can put jokes in the poems, and I must have written about 400 of them since I got to Spring Ridge.
Yeah.
And people are keeping them and putting them on in a book and all that kind of stuff.
All right, we're going to talk about your poetry and just later in the show. But so this was back in, what year was this that you were just enlisting into the military and you were training World War II veterans to, get involved in as they were getting involved?
I graduated from college, 1950.
Okay. And that's about the same time that the Korean conflict was starting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happened to me was most of my guys that graduated from Bombardier, Navigator, so forth, training, were sent to train to go to a outfit in South Korea that flew 50 night missions in B-26s, hopping over hills and so forth and shooting things up and so forth to keep the North Koreans from running all their stuff at night. Mm-hmm. So it was nighttime. Well, but they sent me to Great Falls, Montana. And that lasted about a month until the Great Falls, Montana got a requirement to send somebody to combat. Well, the old World War II guys ducked their heads, and I went. Uh-huh. So I was 1 month in Montana, and they sent me straight to Korea. Now, not through training. So I arrive, and I have never been in that airplane. I don't have any training, and the other guys do. And it kind of tickled me because when I was finishing my training, one of the instructors said, you won't make it. You'll never make it. Well, about a couple months after, I was transferred to Korea. And without ever flying the airplane and so forth, I got all squared away. And the next thing you know, I was flying instructor on bomb runs. Not just flying, but flying the instructor in bomb runs. And I thought, well, I wish I could see that old guy that told me I probably wouldn't make it. Yeah. You know, that's like telling Babe Ruth he'll never make it in the baseball, or telling Clark Gable that he won't make it because his ears are too big. Well,
so you were literally on the planes as they were doing bomb runs, and you were instructing people on the plane.
I can even remember my first flight in that plane, and I was sitting in the riding the right seat, and where the co-pilot usually rides, but I was riding there, and the pilot says, "Get my engines," and I didn't know what he was talking about. I did have a uniform on, and we took off, and we started to go down and shoot things up, and I plugged in my flight suit because it was a little cold to warm up, and I had a short in my flight suit, and it you know what happens when you got a short? Well, there I was. I can't listen to them. We're going down shooting thing, and they're shooting at us, and I had 50 missions of that.
Wow. What was that like? I mean, the first time being shot at, and you were going, how did I get here?
Well, I'll tell you what happened is, after I got down from that flight, I looked out at a spot in the airport, in the airfield, and I could see all these airplanes and so forth. And it kind of reached my spiritual end, because I said, God, I got no control over this. I'm just turning myself over to you because I'm so scared I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I was doing real great and shooting things up, and I earned a Distinguished Flying Cross and all kinds of things when I was flying. And the last two missions, on my 58th mission, I was flying with a guy called Hard Luck Hoffman. Now, it was like a milk run. When a milk run, there's no shooting, and it's just like you're flying stuff, airlines or something like that. Mm-hmm. So there I am with him, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is great. And the mission was, we would tie in to military DMZ, and we would tie in there, and the radar would run us across and into the enemy territory, and then we'd come home. That was real nice, except when we took across the road into enemy territory, they opened up on us. We were just, I don't know if you can imagine what it's like to be the only airplane at night, and all those tracers going by, and he's thinking, how can they even miss us? We're just,
yeah.
and we quick turned around, came back, and they hammered us away. And when we hit ground on the home airfield, I got up and looked down to ground and kissed it.
Yeah.
I said, but in between there, we did have one that kind of tickled me, but we were logged as killed in action. So what we had done.
What does that mean? You were logged as killed in action. They thought your plane was lost, and then you guys made it back to the airfield?
No, missing in action.
Okay.
But it was a real late mission, and they lost us because when we came in on a bomb run, we did a split. You could fly that 26 like a fighter plane. 26, we did a split S and hung on the ground, and nobody could find us. Well, when the guys went to bed from the club and so forth, what could they say?
Yeah.
We were all killed in action. That's what they listed it as.
Yeah.
So I get up we land, and nobody's there because we've all gone to bed. I get up the next morning, I go over to a hut where we bathe, you know.
Yeah.
And and I walk in there, and there's a couple of my guys from my outfit, and they said, "Nicholson, what are you doing here?" Just like it was, you know, I should be dead. I said, "Wait a minute, you guys." I said, "I'm alive. Let's change this.
Let's celebrate this."
Yes, celebrate. Let's not have a funeral.
Yeah. Sorry to disappoint you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that was a good old one, and
Yeah.
and
And it felt good to be alive.
it felt good to be alive. Right.
Yeah. Well, and so now you flew how many missions in Korea?
50.
50 of them. And then you got some awards.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I got the highest one I got was the Distinguished Flying Cross.
Okay, what does that mean? What is the distinguished?
Well, we got the Distinguished Flying Cross from the English in World War I, and it was supposed to be given only to people that were flying and getting a medal. In other words, the ground pounders couldn't get it and so forth. Navy couldn't get it, and the Air Force could. But if they got it flying, because both the Navy and the Army by then had choppers and all that kind of stuff, they could get a Distinguished Flying Cross. Yeah, but that's the highest thing I got. And
do you remember that old song from World War II? It was I think more of a British song about coming in on a wing and a prayer.
Yeah.
And I was thinking as you were describing, how you came in and they didn't know, they thought you were killed in action, and wasn't shot up at all.
No.
I mean, you didn't come in on a wing and a prayer.
No.
Yeah.
No,
It's just
as
miraculous.
hard as I tried to get hurt a little bit, I never could draw a Purple Heart.
Yeah.
But in
Well, that's one you want. That's one award you don't want.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And in Vietnam, I just what I did was I spent my last year in Vietnam running about 40 pilots. And I'm still a navigator, but I'm running 40 pilots around in what we call the old. It was a World War II glider, but it was built so strong. When in Normandy, on D-Day, when they attacked in June, started into France. Well, they had those gliders that hauling troops, but they built them so strong that they could land without any place. Without, well, that's what we had, what we were flying, and it was. But like I say, I was the guy that was sending them out on missions. I did feel good about it because we didn't lose one crew. While we had a perfect flying record when I was doing that.
Yeah.
And it was.
Now, when I'm going to go back to Korea.
Yeah.
And so you were there from 1950 until when?
51 to 52.
51. So you were there for a year. You flew 50 missions. Did you fly with the same crew? Because it sounds like your pilot was an amazing pilot to get you through.
No, and there was an amazing thing because one day I was assigned with this other crew, and because they're with a crew that had friends that were flying also. And the friends, we were down getting ready to get in the airplane and go. Their friends had a crew of friends with them that took off and lost their, it took too long, lost their airlift, crashed and burned. And they had...
And you were supposed to be on that flight?
No.
Somebody removed you?
No.
Okay.
The point was, here I am with these guys who knew the crew that went.
Oh, gotcha.
And my pilot was so shook up when he took off, he got a couple of the the lights on the runway. He hit a couple of those on our takeoff. And I thought, am I going to live through this son of a gun? Yeah.
Wow, it's just amazing how many times you looked death in the eye.
Oh, yeah.
On your missions.
And I'm glad that one of the things I liked was I ended up being the navigator, because while the pilots were sometimes so occupied looking at the engines and so forth, we could have crash landed. One time we're in France, and we're going to Spain, and it was just a kind of a routine mission, but we lost power in the left engine, and we feathered it and gave it power in the right a little more. And a mile or two down the road, a little more, we started losing it. The right engine started burning up, and we brought the left engine that we'd already feathered. We brought it back in, and we went a little farther and got close, but knew we were going to make the airport, but it started burning, and we feathered it for the second time, and we, brought power into the right engine. So there we are on the with those problems we've got, and I look out, and people at the tower weren't watching what was going on because we'd already said Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. And I looked out, and they had a crew come out on the runway and start working on the runway, and we're there with this glider, you might call it, going. And I called them, and the pilots I didn't have time to talk them into it. I just went straight to the tower, and I said, get those guys off of there, we're going to kill them. And we can't do anything about it. You've got to save their lives and ours. And so they saved them. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Man. And, well, it's like later on, I'll tell you about when I flew outer space. I flew...
In outer space?
In outer space, just like an astronaut with astronaut stuff. But we'll get to that.
In the 60s. Okay, so before we get to there, that sounds like a great story as well. So you're in Korea. You served a year in active military duty.
Well, it may not have been quite a year because all you had to do was fly to 50 missions.
50 missions.
Yeah.
And then what happened then after you flew your 50 missions? Then what did they do? Because the war lasted from 50 to 53 in Korea, and you were done in 52.
Yeah. Okay. So they sent me to a base in South Carolina, and we were flying what's called C-119, and had twin tails, and it had its problem. It was so-called Cold War, and we flew all the way from Australia to Greenland and Alaska, doing stuff, and we also and they transferred us then from South Carolina to Germany and then to France, and in the wintertime, and it was predicted we'd lose at least 2 or 3 planes on that. Well, we didn't do it.
Yeah. Now you had enlisted for 4 years, or were you at this point making the military a career?
Yeah, at this point I was, where do I have to go? Yeah.
Yeah. So you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so from Korea, then you went and back to the States, and then you did some work in Europe.
Well, yeah. Well, one of the things that I had happened to us when we were in Europe is we were flying into it was the old days when they had the Berlin, the routes to Berlin. You had to fly through those, and we were in one, and one of the crews got goofed a little bit and got a little too far off, and the next thing you know, Russian MiGs were following us. And so we dodged and landed before they could get to us. And when I looked out there and I saw because I had already gone by Hiroshima when I did my stuff in Korea, you could tell what was the Russian zone because the other three were the ours and the English and the French were rebuilt up. But you know how we bombed Berlin out during the war?
Yeah. And
the Russians hadn't done anything to it. It was just like an atom bomb had landed there.
Yeah.
Anyway, then
they assigned. So the rebuilding of cities, they assigned them to different nations. Is that how they?
No, just in there.
Oh, just in there. Okay.
Just in Berlin.
Yeah. So, but let me go back to Hiroshima. Did you land in at all, or you flew over Hiroshima and you saw the devastation of the atomic?
No, I saw it in the train.
Uh-huh.
Well, I got to Japan, and to get to my base in Korea, and I took a train, a Japanese train, from Japan down south to an air base in Japan, and then flew from there over to Korea, where I was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, so you've seen a lot up to this point.
Yeah. It was like live fast, die young, and leave a good-looking body. That was what it was like.
That's what your motto was?
Well, I had no idea.
Well, like your mother always told you, always put on clean underwear because you never know if you're going to have to go to the hospital, right? Yeah. Leave a good-looking body.
Yeah. Well, I had no idea that I would live past the age of 30.
Yeah.
I thought I was dead.
Yeah.
And that was 60 years ago.
You're listening to Aging Today with your host Mark Turnbull and his guest Nick Nicholson, a veteran of the Korean and Vietnam Wars, sharing his story of bravery as we honor our veterans who served so faithfully for our country. We'll hear more of Nick's incredible story in just a moment.
Sometimes I'd like to smack old age right in the kisser. Ow!
Oh yeah, still got those moves.
I will be fabulous.
Comfort Care can help with as much or as little home care as you need. From medication reminders and meal prep to everyday chores and errands. Let us create your personalized care plan and find the perfect caregiver match so you can live your best life possible.
Call Comfort Care at 503-636-0417.
A Did You Know moment from Comfort Care Home Care of West Lynn.
Did you know during the Korean War, the U.S. Air Force transported troops and equipment from Japan to Korea, evacuated American nationals, provided significant intelligence through aerial reconnaissance, and most importantly, helped to slow the North Korean advance so that the United Nations forces could construct a defensive position on the peninsula. The United States Air Force also provided tremendous and diverse contributions in Vietnam, beginning as advisors in the U.S. Military Assistance Advisory Group in the 1950s and ending with large bombing operations in the early 1970s. The United States Air Force losses in the campaign totaled 531 aircraft and 547 airmen. This Did You Know moment is brought to you by Comfort Care Home Care of West Linn, Oregon. Call today at 503-636-0417.
Now more from Mark Turnbull and his guest, veteran Nick Nicholson, on this special Veterans Day edition of Aging Today.
I've seen your pictures, and for our listening audience, we're going to be posting those. You were a good-looking man. So about the whole thing with leaving a good body, you had that,
Yeah.
and it was about preserving that body.
Well,
and you went through hell.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that tickled me is when they looked at my old picture at the University of Oregon in that uniform, and then they looked at the picture now taken of me here.
Uh-huh.
They say, "Nick, what happened?
Yeah.
What do you think happened? I got old."
Well, if you've seen what I've seen, starting in Korea,
Yeah.
and you lived through that piece of hell, and that's, I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know how you would describe it.
Yeah, well, it was hell.
But being shot at, and you're putting your life on the line, and you were, at what age were you on that first mission? Were you, 22, 20?
Yeah, about 22, 23.
And today you're 92, so yeah, 70 years later, you're here telling your story. So you've seen it all.
Well, and I should have died when we were flying in outer space. I'll tell you about that.
Okay, we're gonna get there. So now we're talking 1952. They sent you home. You're still in the military. How did you get to Vietnam?
Well, the first one is
because the Vietnam conflict started in 1954 and it lasted till 1974.
Yeah, well, they sent us to New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we were flying jets. It's the first time I've ever been in a jet in my life, and the first time I was ever in a jet, both engines quit, and we had a glider to land, and the guy that was flying was the guy that was assigned to me. I was going to be his Navigator, bombardier, all that stuff. And he did it anyway. And we flew from Australia to Alaska and so forth, doing all that stuff, and that's when I flew in outer space. And we were B-57Ds, and that was the last one. And I did help them before I got out of there to help them build a brand new F model, 57F, that would take care of the bad things. But one thing, the Ds were getting a little rusty, some of them, and the wings had come off. But they sent us out on this mission to test those big multi-bombs, tons of bigger than the little atom bombs in the U.S. in the World War II. And
these flew at what elevation? Do you remember what the height was of the elevation for those missions?
Well, I think it was something like 70,000. But you see, what we flew through was the cloud. We flew an hour afterwards, and the cloud would raise up and go outer space. And that's when they fixed me up like a astronaut, and with all the stuff on, and if you lost
pressure suits,
if you lost your pressure, you were dead in a matter of seconds. Yeah. Okay. Well,
you've got this thing with death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And during that time, 3 times cancer stuff on my hands and body. And it took me 3 showers to get that stuff off. And when we came back to the States, they wouldn't let us touch anything, and because the airplane was so hot. If you touched the airplane, it'd burn your hands right there.
Wow.
Anyway, I went through all that, and one of the worst things is we went to, in Miami, we went to a meeting with, on getting ready to go to the fly. And there was a brigadier general running it. And we did a practice run, and he didn't like it too well. So when we got back and did the second one, we walked in and sat down, me with the commander, and one of the guards came there and said to my commander, "You're supposed to leave this building," and we were in Hawaii, "and take the next airplane back to the States because you've been fired." So they called me to the front door, or to the guard door, and the guard said to me, "The commander wants to see you." And I walked up and I said, "What's going on?" He says, "Well, I've been fired, and you are now the commander of that squadron." I said, "What?" and I said, "Yeah, we're going to send the operations officer over, and you're commander till then." So I thought, okay. So I waited till the commander gets there, and I said, "Sir, glad to see you, because you're now in command." He says, "No, I'm not, Nick. You get those guys together and have another briefing and straighten out what happened, why they fired that commander." Well, oh boy. And when I said, "Well, I want to explain, because they put our enlisted men in danger because they had them diffusing and washing the airplanes off at the wrong time, and they're going to be hurt." He said, "You got it." So up there I am, convincing them what's going on in that. And then we took off and did it, and that's when I got my outer space, because those clouds went way up, and I went in an hour afterwards, and I got so much radiation on me. That's when I did the 3 showers.
Well, why was there radiation?
No,
Does the atmosphere produce radiation?
No, the cloud. It was still radiating.
From Hiroshima, from the nuclear blast.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, I missed that part.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, yeah, that is amazing. So you guys were flying in that.
Yeah.
And how long did that stay in the air after the explosion?
Oh, I don't know, a few years.
Yeah.
It's just like the little ones in Nevada.
Yeah.
And that stayed in the air and came back east,
You flew through these mushroom clouds after the test for 7 different times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that's quite a few.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was.
And you're still alive. That's just that's amazing.
Yeah. It is amazing that, like I say, that.
So you have a history of eluding death.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. You've gone through Korea, 50 missions, and I don't know what the percentage. Do you know the percentage of men like yourself that lasted through 50 missions?
It wasn't as bad as World War II, because they only flew 25.
Yeah.
But they figured we couldn't make it over 50. That's what I was proud about when I was running in Vietnam, when I was running those airplanes around. And I had a perfect flight record.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got the Air Force Commendation Medal, which is one that wasn't, in flying, but it was because of the way I engineered that and had learned how to put the right pilot with the right correct pilot and engineer and so forth, so they had good chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so Korea, mushroom clouds, high elevations, eluding death through radiation. What happened after that then? Where did your story go from there? Did Vietnam come in after? So
yeah, Vietnam came in after.
Right. Okay. So you're still in the military. and you've flown through 7 mushroom clouds of radiation. You're still alive, and then you're still devoted to serving our country.
Yeah.
You're still putting your life on the line and saying, okay, use me. What's next?
Well, so I came back to the States, Texas, and did some training and flying and all that kind of stuff. And they sent me to Philippine Islands. And with the Philippine Islands, we were flying with a super spook. He was the guy that was running, well, our program there was run by the President of the United States. And he had us in the war room, about 3 crews, in case something happened to us, because we were spying. We'd fly in different countries, and we had a crew back there with shooting, taking pictures and doing, that kind of stuff. And
so you were on aircraft that were taking reconnaissance pictures and things like that.
We're like what, the space thing run is,
Yeah. So you're in Vietnam. You were sent to the Philippine Islands, and you were called the Super Spooks, and you're taking reconnaissance pictures at very high elevations, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, no, we're flying. Because we're spying. So we're flying just regular height. And
what's regular height?
10,000.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So we're flying those, and like I say, we got our crews in White House War Room.
Okay.
White House War Room. And
so you're rubbing shoulders with some pretty high up people.
Oh, yeah. And like I say,
What year was this? This was like in the 60s or the 50s?
50s.
Okay.
Because when the Vietnam War started.
Yeah, that was 54.
Yeah, okay. That's when he was born.
Okay.
And when it started, I remember they took us over and put us in the helping, because we got all these airplanes coming in, and people coming in from the States. That's when they, started in Vietnam, sending so many people over there. And we were helping them because we were in the control in the Philippines. Yeah, and when I was doing spying, it wasn't 54 because that's when he was born. I couldn't tell. We were living there in the Philippines.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell Scott or his mother what kind of airplane I was flying or who in and out in the other. And there was another crew in the room about 3 times this size or 4, and they wouldn't talk to us and we wouldn't talk to them because of all the secrecy. Yeah, and then it got it got worse and worse over there.
Yeah.
And one time I remember when our language wasn't all that good, and we'd had a enlisted man, and he transferred back to the States, and they put a woman in there to do the paperwork and so forth. And she let us know that she was a Christian and very, devout. Well, I thought I was too, but anyway, our language, the guys. So we started counting. We had an imaginary chalkboard, and when one of us said something we shouldn't, we tapped him. That's one there. So it wasn't about a week till we filled the board, and we quit cussing. And not one of us used bad words from then till the time we left.
Wow.
Wasn't that?
Yeah.
Oh, nothing like love from above.
Yes.
Then they sent me back to Eugene, Oregon to teach the seniors. 4 years I taught seniors, Air Force ROTC, and not only military, but law, because, the Uniform Code of Military Justice law, and we taught them financial stuff. I had a brigadier general, retired, come talk to them about how to work their finances and so forth. And some of those guys I caught them in the senior year, and I looked over their stuff, and I could see that they weren't going to graduate like they should, because I was working on a master's degree at the time. And and I ended up calling deans and this and that and the other to get them squared away so they could graduate the same time they got their commission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what year was this?
This was from 69, so it would be
69, approximately in that area.
Yeah, the 69 was when the last year when they sent me back to.
So your time in Vietnam was flying and taking pictures of reconnaissance type pictures.
Yeah.
And were you shot at?
Well, only if we were in Vietnam, where the war was going on. Yeah, we got shot at then. It was all combat. I had 1,000 hours of combat time.
Where were you flying over? What part? Were you up in North Vietnam or South Vietnam? Where were you flying at that time?
Well, we couldn't. Theoretically, we weren't supposed to fly in North Korea, but North Vietnam. But we ended up there.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Doing our thing.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to go and even Cambodia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then so you were there through the 60s in Vietnam, and then you what do they call that, a semi-retirement after Vietnam, and then you went to the University of Oregon and started teaching. But you were still enlisted. Were you still enlisted in the military at that time, or did you retire?
1969 was the last year I was at the University of Oregon. I got my master's degree, sent me back to Vietnam. That's when we flew the World War II that had been gliders.
Yeah.
And I ran 40 of them around, 40 pilots around, and didn't have any. I had a perfect flight safety.
Wow.
And
how come? What would you attribute that to? A perfect score?
What I attributed it to was listening to the guys and finding out when was the best time for them to fly. Like some guys would want to fly 2 days off a day, 2 days off a day. Another one would want to fly 4 days and off 2 days or something. And then making sure that crew member, pilot, or whatever it was, had good chemistry with the other one.
Because these were two-seaters. They had a pilot and they call them co-pilots in gliders? The guy that sat behind him?
No, they had a pilot, a co-pilot, and then sometimes we'd have somebody behind them too.
Oh, so three, up to three in a glider.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, then I got out and came home and retired, and the first job I had was working on a federal program all over the state of Oregon, and it was follow up on the census to straighten things out in the census. It lasted a year, and then they assigned me to the employment division, and my first job was with what they call a WIN program, and I had about 70 welfare mothers and their kids to help them find a job or send them to training or something. I had some of them that finished college, all that kind of stuff, and social service workers to help them, and we also had some technicians to help them with clothes and cars and babysitting and all that. And then after that, for a while, they put me with disabled veterans to take them. And one of the things, we had a great program because by then they were sleeping under bridges and all that, you know. And we go out and get them there and get them down and send them on a job. And we had a place there in town that would take care of them. And it was like those welfare mothers, seeing them come in with their tail dragging and seeing them go out ready to take on the world, you know. And sometimes we'd break into a family that had been on like welfare for 3 or 4 generations.
Yeah.
And we'd break through that. And then, like I say, retired.
Okay.
And
so let me see if I can capsulize everything, okay? So you're a survivor. There's a reason for you surviving three wars. You survived 3 wars. Think about it. Number 1, you went into the Korean War, 50 missions, survived it without a scratch. Number 2, you started flying high elevations into the mushroom clouds that were left over from World War II. So that's the second war that you survived with radiation effects. And then you go into Vietnam and flying missions throughout the Vietnam conflict.
Well, actually, I did 2 tours in Vietnam.
2 tours, yeah. It's a lot of time.
Well, the first tour was when we were doing that. Spy work, and the second one was that last year. They sent me over. They said, "Do you have to go over there, Nick? Back here in the States?"
Yeah.
And I'd say, "Well, I got 19 years toward it. I'm going." So I kind of swallowed my pride, and but when they started, doing their thing, why?
Well, and when I say, and when others say, thank you for your service, I truly mean that, because you gave the best of your life to the service of this country and to helping people in other parts of the world find freedom, find liberty, and justice for all.
Well, I'm so proud of our military. Right now, this COVID-19, when they were so close and they couldn't get masks and so forth, some of those guys didn't have to get it if they could have got masks and got away from them.
Yeah.
It's kind of like those poor guys or gals in prison. They had the same thing. They're, bugged in there. And that's why I wrote that poem about shots. Because people don't realize, I don't think, that, okay, shots, but if they don't have shots, hey, you can't give me a shot. But if they don't have shots, then they may be given, not only get it, but give it to other people.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make sense. Sometime you got to grow up and say, I'm going to help these people out, right?
Right.
That's what kind of where I'm sitting right now is thinking about. They say in our culture, the people that are happiest are the ones that are helping somebody out, because the other ones, ego trip or money or education or any of that. But then it's over. But you can help people out. You can always help people out in some way or other, even if you're, almost destitute, in bed. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the chapter in your life. You're a veteran. And then there's a place where you became a poet. How old were you when you finally, because you were a jokester and you loved, you got great jokes. I love your jokes. And, but when is it that you discovered that you could put thoughts on paper through poetry? How old were you?
Well, I suppose it was very sketchy to start with. And I didn't I really came into it here when I got it in Spring Ridge.
And Spring Ridge is a senior community, living community, long-term care community in Wilsonville, Oregon.
Yeah, and I wrote a poem or two, and people liked them. And like I say, I keep doing it. And right now, I must have written from the time I got here in, I don't know, 14 or whatever, I must have written 400 poems.
400. So why don't you read, which do you want to do? You brought 2 poems today. Which one would you want to start with? Why don't we do the patriotic one since this is Veterans Day?
I haven't done this.
Let's do this one, okay? So this is Nick Nicholson. And when did you write this? What year?
A couple years back.
A couple years ago. Okay. And this is in relationship to Veterans Day, being a patriot.
And by at the end of the thing, I've written Nick Nicholson in parentheses, humbly written. Another day of infamy, which each of us will remember in our own way. It's when anger, terror, and war are released, and we should not be pleased. There are a great many nations in this world who experience this and other disasters as they unfold. So what can we do to make it better? We can focus on our blessings to the letter. First, we should love our Creator in our hearts and souls. Next, love our neighbors, whatever their roles.
Well written.
Thank
well
you.
said. Thank you. Thank you for those thoughts. Thank you for your service. And in conclusion of our show today, there is one more story that you haven't told that I want our listening audience to hear. And that's the story of the truest of loves. You love this country very much. It shows that you gave your life for that. But I also know that there's another love in your life. And I want you to tell the story about how you met the most important love in your life, your wife. When did you meet her? And I'm so impressed with military wives because behind every good man is a great woman.
Yeah.
And she stayed with you. How long were you guys married?
70 years.
70 years of bliss. And I'm sure you guys had your ups and downs, but the way you describe it is that she was the love of your life.
Well, when did I meet her?
Yep. When did you meet?
And where? I met her on Memorial Day in 1951, and I was in flight training, and my one of the guys that was in the flight training, and she was in the airlines, so. But he had a cousin who was in the airlines, a gal. Thought it'd be a good idea to get us together and have a party. So we got together on Memorial Day and on the beach close to Houston. We met in bathing suits. And
Corpus Christi.
Someplace,
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And at first, she didn't, the only thing she can remember, she was impressed that I wasn't impressed with her. But she said that you took 40 or 50 cents from me playing hearts. And she says, and I never will pay you that back. But when we got married, I still remember this, we'd been going together about 5 months. We were sitting in those days in a minor league ball team. I think it was a Buffalo or something like that, but it was in Texas. And I had popcorn in one hand and a beer in the other. I says, we ought to get married. And she says, yeah, I suppose so. I mean, it wasn't me down on my knees and all that kind of stuff. It was popcorn and beer.
Yeah.
And when after we'd been married for quite a few years, well, Scott and the two grandsons had a story of our marriage and so forth because it was an anniversary. Mm-hmm. And where did they put it? In the Houston, or in Portland paper, the Oregonian? In the sporting section, of course. Where do you think?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear the story of everybody's got a story.
Oh, yeah. Well, we don't have time for my story. Okay. You think you're a talker. I think the two of us, we could just stay all week and just discuss. But I love hearing your story of how you served the two greatest loves of your life, your country and your wife. And you guys were married for 70 years.
And still going, still cooking.
And still going. And she's 90. Are you guys the same age? She's 92?
She's 93, and I'm 92 going on 14.
You're a smart man. You married an older, experienced woman.
Yeah.
Good job.
And one of the youngest grandsons said, well, she's the boss because she's 10 months older.
Uh-huh.
And he said, yeah, Revy, but if I was 10 months older, she'd still be the boss.
She'd still be the boss. Amen to that. You know your place and you know it well. You take the orders. You took the orders in the military and you're continuing to take them to this day.
Happy wife, happy life.
There you go. Yeah, love that. All right. Well, is there any pieces to your story that you want to add on? I know that one of the things that you continued to do in your retirement was that you gave back to the community and you served coaching?
Kids and all the way up to highest coach, I think, was 50-something.
Yeah.
And like I say, that on that picture with West Lynn, I was 80 when the boys decided. And I still remember the joke I told them. And they remembered we had a reunion 10 years later, and they still remembered.
What was the joke?
What do you call a camel without a hump?
I don't know.
Humphrey, of course.
Love that. Yeah, that's good.
But
Humphrey.
What do I look forward to every day?
Yeah.
I look forward to getting up and getting myself in a position to love people. And if I see like somebody in a wheelchair or something, they can't open the door or something, well, it tells me. Because one thing I like from the good book, it says, you don't know, you might be taking care of an angel.
That's right.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
But so I think we all have a value of one. Nobody is better than that. Nobody's worse. And that's that love from above. That's what's doing it to me.
Do you have any fear in life? What do you fear? I mean, I look back on your story, and you've looked at death straight in the eye.
Yeah. Well, I don't have fear now.
Yeah.
Because I have that love from above.
There you go.
And but I think all of us should get up and say, well, I'm going to live today like it's the last day I'm going to live, right?
Yeah.
When you do that,
you've done it well. Well done, good and faithful servant. Yeah. If you were to tell our listening audience and you want to leave a legacy, is that your legacy that you want to leave? Or when you depart this earth?
Yeah, love.
Yeah.
Love. I want them to pass that love generation to generation.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what, and don't you feel good about things that you do for people? Right now, you're doing great stuff.
Oh,
Thank you for your service.
Yeah. Well, my life has not been on the line like you. When Vietnam ended, I was a junior in high school. So I dodged that bullet, literally. And then went on to I was in sports, so I went to Oregon State and on from there, and went into the ministry from there. And then from there, I started businesses and been doing the combination of the two. The best ministry is through your hands and serving our fellow human beings, and that's what we're doing now.
Hal, I tell you, I'm a duck, of course, and he's a duck. And
I'm a beaver.
And I like, the last...
I bleed orange and black, so...
I know, there's a gal, friends, and she wanted me to, she's a beaver, she wanted me to write her. And of course, I say, I like the beavers. Of course, I wouldn't want one of my daughters to marry one, but...
Well said. And that's the true rivalry in the state of Oregon is they can't call it the Civil War anymore. I say BS to that. I'm going to still call it the Civil War because if you live in the state of Oregon, it is a civil war. Yeah. And there's nothing unpatriotic about that at all. There's nothing racist about the Civil War. Was about freeing us from racism. It was about freeing us and uniting this as a country. That doesn't make any sense to me, but we don't want to get down that path. What I want to do is stay focused on your story, and we're coming up against the end of the show. This is Veterans Day, and I say thank you once again from the bottom of my heart. I had no idea the depth of your story. You lived through the effects of 3 different wars. You were a part of that greatest generation that passed a legacy on to my generation and to my children's generations. And I say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your service. What I would like to do, Nick, is I would like you, for our listening audience, I'd like you to read your poem once again. And the title of this is called Patriot Day. Patriot Day. And let's conclude the show, unless you have anything else you want to add. Do you want to add anything else? No. Let's finish with your poem, because I think it says it well.
Another day of infamy, which each of us will remember in our own way. It's when anger, terror, and war are released, and we should not be pleased. There are many great nations in this world who experience this and other disasters as they unfold. So what can we do to make it better? We can focus our blessings to the letter. First, we should love our Creator in our hearts and souls. Next, love our neighbors, whatever their roles. Nicholson, humbly written.
What a way to end. Thank you for loving this country. And secondly, loving your wife. What is your wife's first name?
Jane. Her first name is Mary Jane, but she goes by Janie.
Janie, you hit the lottery with a man by the name of Nicholson by marrying him. And I would also say that in reverse. Nicholson, you hit the lottery with Mary Jane. And you guys, what a lovely life, what a lovely testimony. You live life, I can't think of any better life than what you have shown, and then passing that on to your children, passing on that on to the rest of us, telling your story around the world. This is going worldwide. And thank you. It's an honor to have met you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. This is Mark Turnbull. Thank you for tuning in to Aging Today. This is the podcast where together we explore the many options to aging on your terms. Join us again next week for another lively discussion on Aging Today. Remember, we're all in the process of aging, and as we age, we really are better together. So stay young at heart.
You make me feel so young. You make me feel like spring has sprung. And every time I see your face, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I want to go play hide and seek. I want to go and bounce the moon. just like a toy balloon. Well, you and I are just like a couple of tots running across the meadow, picking up lots of forget-me-nots. So you made me feel so young. You made me feel there are songs to be sung, bells to be rung, and a wonderful thing to be fun. And even when I'm old and gray.
You've been listening to Aging Today, where together we explore the options to aging on your terms. Join Mark and his guest next week for another lively discussion on proactively aging on your terms, connecting you to the professional advice of his special guests, with the goal of creating better days throughout the aging process. Your host has been Mark Turnbull. Join Mark and his guests every week on Aging Today, your podcast to exploring your options for aging on your terms.
And even when I'm old and gray, you make me feel the way I feel today. 'Cause you make me feel so. You make me feel so. You make me feel so young. So young. You make me feel so young. You make me feel so young.